Now, there are 8 candidates in the fray in the Russian election. The poll is on March 18, Sunday, when Russia will elect a new president. Now, all controversies and criticism aside, Vladimir Putin still remains the first choice of the Russians and is the favorite to win the upcoming presidential election.
Vladimir Putin is widely expected to secure a 4th term. The March 18th election seems like a formality for the Russian president who was first elected in 2000. The strongman of Russia still remains the favorite choice of Russians in the opinion polls. Pollsters predict that Putin will get more than 70% of the vote. But 7 other candidates are challenging the Russian president. 2 experienced politicians, the right-wing populist Vladimir Zhirinovsky and liberal opposition politician Grigory Yavlinsky, are in the fray. But there are also many new faces contesting this year's Russian presidential polls. One of them is Russia's strawberry tycoon Pavel Grudinin, who's backed by the Russian Communist Party. Grudinin is a known Stalin admirer. Ksenia Sobchak is the only woman face to contest the Russian elections this year. Sometimes known as Russia's Paris Hilton, TV journalist, socialite and actress, Sobchak is the daughter of the former mayor of St. Petersburg. But these faces are unlikely to give Putin any challenge. Critics and opponents of Putin have either been disqualified or put behind bars. Many of them have also been mysteriously found dead over the years. Many had hoped that opposition leader Alexei Navalny would challenge President Putin this year. The 41-year-old was seen as the most serious challenger that Putin has faced while he was in power. But he was not even allowed to contest the polls after he was convicted in a fraud case, which he says is politically motivated. When he took power at the dawn of this century, Putin implemented plans for Russia's economic recovery, which put more money in the hands of the common man. But during his 3rd term, Putin's cabinet was criticized for the slowdown in the economy. This is one of the reasons why the Russian president is running as an independent candidate for this election. While dissent has been steadily muzzled during the strongman's rule, Russians are yet to fall out of love with Vladimir Putin. Bureau Report, WION.
All right, joining me live from Moscow is Dan Ashby. Good evening, Dan. With less than 3 days to go for the election, what's the mood like where you are? And also, what would the next 6-year term of Putin mean for Russia and the world?
Well, there's been plenty of rallies here in Moscow and across Russia, and you can expect in those rallies to see fervent atmosphere, huge flags being waved, and there is a lot of people talking about the election, and there is also a lot of people talking about frustration about the election. You know, the Kremlin and Moscow are concerned about apathy this time around. Putin, of course, approaching a near quarter of a century if he wins, as everyone is assuming that he will, the poll on Sunday. So the key thing for the Kremlin is to try get more people to go to vote, to give more legitimacy to Putin. But of course, whether that's going to happen or not still remains to be seen.
And also very quickly, Dan, what would the next 6-year term for Putin mean for the world at large?
Well, I think, as you can see from certainly the last 4 or 5 years, Putin is starting to pride himself on standing up to the West, to coin a Russian phrase that he uses a lot. He always says that he thinks with his head and not his heart, and he says he always puts Russia's interests first. So he sees that as restoring the glory of Russia back to the heyday of the Soviet Empire. He has concerns about NATO and NATO approaching Russia's borders, and of course he thinks that accusations such as doping, meddling in elections, things like that are completely unfair and are designed to tarnish Russia. So he says he will continue to be the strong man, if you like, to stand up for Russia's interests on the world. And make no mistake, he wants to see Russia as a superpower who is playing a key role in issues such as Syria, Ukraine and other parts of the world.
Right, on that note, Dan Ashby in Moscow, thank you so much for that live update.